B-R-Z-E-N.
A quick note before we get started. This episode contains reference to suicide and suicidal ideation.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey. Good morning.
Hey, I'm Nicky. How you doing? Do you prefer Robert or Magnus, or how do you want to...
Yeah, Magnus.
Nice.
We're greeted by a large and very friendly Rottweiler.
Hello. You're a big fella.
Yeah, he's pretty friendly, just,
Yes.
I always tell people just don't look at him directly and let him come to you.
He looks, for what it's worth, happy and well looked after.
What a good boy. What's his name?
Max.
Hey, Max. Max, meet Max.
It's sunny outside, but inside Robert Sichkowski's living room is dim, blinds down. Next to it is a game room full of antique arcade machines and neon signs.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you can turn off the lights, see?
Oh, wow. Very, specific.
Yeah, it's like a time machine.
Yeah.
We got Star Wars, we got Midway Defender.
NBA Jam.
Your arcade.
Oh, man. How long
This
did it take you
is
to collect all this?
fabulous.
2019, I just got the Tron in 2021.
So this is original Pac-Man?
It plays the original.
He brings us down to his basement where we sit for the interview. It's dim here too. Low ceiling, dark wood-panelled walls, and burgundy shag pile carpet. All around, row after row of fursuit heads stare out from the shelves. There must be 24 at least, all lovingly handmade.
Well, that's Wild Star, half deer, half wolf. That's a cat kimono. That's a Lionel Bassell. Those are the two Coon brothers. Tristan, America, Grimace McWendy, T-Sack. That's the Halley-Owl wolf, he's the Elvis. Male rabbits are called bucks. This one has huge ears, so his name is Buck and Ear. And the one next to it is Sinistar. It's the Phantom's first and only Greek Chimera fursuit.
Oh, that's two heads out of the one.
Yes, you wear those both on your shoulder. One head goes this way, one head goes that way.
That's so cool.
Wow.
And I have a head that I wear in the middle. It's very heavy,
Yeah.
and there's absolutely no wear.
Even Patch admits Sichkowski is a talented fursuit maker, and that's immediately clear just looking around. These suits are exquisite. Sinistar especially is, there's no other word for it, gorgeous. Possibly the most elaborate fursuit we've seen in the entire course of making this show. Based on a Greek mythological beast, it has 3 fully realized heads, each worthy of their own full fursuit. On another shelf, I also spot the spike-helmeted World War I German fursuit he wore when he was arrested at Midwest Furfest in 2017. But one is conspicuously absent.
Spectrum of the fandom. There's one particular fursuit of yours that I think has been the cause of a lot of controversy.
Yeah, I took the liberty of not having it out at the time. I wasn't sure if you were aware of that.
Yeah. Do you have that here still?
Yeah, I was trying to only bring it out for certain occasions.
Would it be okay if we asked to see it?
Yep, let's put it away. What do you want to see, the head or the body, or?
And there it is, in the fur. The Confederate fursuit.
Yeah, it's old. It has seen better days. There. I'm surprised you guys, I was hoping you guys wouldn't talk about that, because when I put on that suit of the con, I don't feel like I can really relax.
He's clearly conflicted about it.
But it's kind of in the past. I just wanted to do something different, just to be the first to do something. So.
At some points, regretful.
Would you say you're a different person today
Yes.
than you were then?
I'm definitely a different person. If I had to do it all over again, I would not do it. Yeah. I'm going to be remembered for this. 30 years from now, I'll go to a con and people will still bring it up. How long you want to keep bringing this up? How long you want to dwell on the past? Are you that hurt by looking at something? And to me, it was just a flag. There are worse things in this world to look at than a flag of any kind.
But there's another part of him. A part that's proud.
When I first made it, no, I didn't think it was going to blow up that big. There's articles out there, the most talked about suit at the convention. It's like, oh man. No fursuit ever made such a big splash so quickly.
It was like you got a sort of pride in it.
Well, better to be remembered for something than forgotten for everything.
From Brazen, this is Fur and Loathing. I'm Nicky Wolf. Episode 6, Chimera. It's been a long journey to get to this moment. I've been thinking about this story for 10 years, and me and this whole team have been working intensively on it for months. We've pored over hundreds of documents, chased down scores of leads, done dozens of interviews, and this is what it's all been leading up to. The microphones are on, I've got my notebook in my hand. Finally, I'm sitting opposite suspect number 1.
Okay, ready?
Well, kind of. Sichkowski's actually started the interview wearing a black and white skunk fursuit named Renegade. Not the full body, but the head, hands, tail, and feet.
Okay, my life story was, I was born in the early 70s, and I grew up in a little town called Conshohocken outside of Philadelphia. And it was kind of a normal life, and when I became of age, I joined the United States military, and I was stationed in Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. I came home and just got a job, worked, and eventually discovered the Phantom. There really wasn't a whole lot to tell that was out of the ordinary.
And what did the fandom mean to you when you first stumbled across it?
It was adventure, excitement. I got to travel. There were like parades and conventions. I've been to Florida, California.
I had been planning on slowly building up towards talking about the chlorine incident. In our correspondence, we haven't specifically told him the focus of our investigation. We're still approaching the situation with caution. The FBI behavioral analysis people and several of our sources have told us that this guy could be dangerous, remember? We don't know how he's going to react. But actually, strangely enough, just like Caleb did, he's the one who brings up the chlorine attack first.
What do you think the media gets wrong about furries?
Well, they get everything wrong when they want to make a story. Like that one thing that happened at Midwest Fur Fest about 10 years ago. I recall there was a news piece about it where the interviewers, where the news people were like laughing about it.
And that was taken pretty badly?
Well, the Phantom didn't care for it because 19 people went to the hospital. People could have died, and I was there when it happened.
So much for building up slowly, I think to myself, mentally shifting gears.
Could you tell us the full story of that?
I went there and I did what I always did, and then they escorted out to the hotel, and for 4 hours I was wandering around the street. I went to another hotel across the street, so I was able to warm up. And then they let us back in.
I realize it's definitely time to be speaking face to face.
I think, would you mind taking the flag off, just as it's... Is that about the...
Under the head, Sichkowski's hair, still long but now greying, is frizzed by static. He smooths it down. He's still wearing the wide, flat skunk tail. It's now pushed up behind him by the chair, so the white around its edge frames him like the back of a furry throne.
Can you walk us through, kind of moment to moment, what happened in 2014? Because I've been kind of...
He stares off to his right, up at the ceiling as he answers.
I was in my room drinking, and I put on a suit and I went out there. I was the variety show earlier that night. Then I came back, had a few drinks, went upstairs, ate some Chinese food, come back, talked to the roommate.
He swallows nervously.
And then I start to hear the alarms, and it's like, what is that? I went out in the hallway, and it's like everyone's leaving, so I said, well, I guess we better leave too.
But as we heard last episode, the roommate denies being with him at the time of the attack, and said as much to the FBI.
When did the FBI first come to you? Was it straight afterwards?
About 3 days later, they knocked on the door, and I was like wondering, who are these people?
Was it like just one dude or like a full?
It was like, he had like a team of 4 people with him.
What was that like for you?
I didn't know what was going on. I was like, why am I a suspect?
Did they say what?
No, they said my name got brought up.
Do you know who might have brought it up?
I have no idea. I really don't. Yeah. Well.
And then they came again when later on? Was that?
Well, at first I wouldn't let them search the place because, like, why not? And they came back a few hours later. I'm like, fine, search. I had a few drinks anyway, so. And of course they found nothing because nothing to find. And they were back a year later just to do a follow-up, and they asked me the same question again to see if my answers would change. It's like, and now I know, don't answer the door, refuse to answer questions.
This is how the FBI files describe it playing out too.
Just my name came up.
And you worked at a swimming pool at the time?
I worked as a lifeguard. So, well, look, he has access to chlorine.
You think that might have had something to do with why they turned up?
Could have been. I mean, there may have been other things, but no, it's bringing back some bad memories. Maybe we could move on to something else, or.
Sure.
Because because it's just reminded me, because when the FBI was questioning 4 or 5 guys in a room and I'm sitting in a chair, and traumatic.
Yeah, it must.
His body language is tense, clearly uncomfortable, but then I am asking uncomfortable questions.
Did they ask you about you're aware of this sort of previous experience you've had doing a gas incident?
If there wasn't a previous one, well, there was a stink bomb. And that's why I'm guessing that was the only reason. A damn stink bomb, and the FBI are at my house.
Had you ever done that before?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, as a prank, yes, but next question, please.
I say, because
He blinks compulsively, almost like a tick. It was also noticeable in the police interview tape from 2017 when Suchkowski was again interrogated by the FBI.
I guess before we move on, just to flat out ask the question, I know this must be, did you set off the chlorine?
Set it off.
Do you have any way of corroborating that?
All I can say is, yeah, I was there when it happened, but I mean, I'm there to fursuit. Why am I going to go ahead and do something to the con? That just spoils my fun. I had plans that night, They were spoiled. That's what I'm saying. People still think it's me. Well, it ain't.
The more we talk, the more I start to feel like Suchkowski is dissociating. Like he's talking to us, but also to himself. A different part of himself, perhaps. Like there are parts he can't access.
I've actually put up a mental block. I'm almost literally incapable of formulating the theory regarding it. Because I can't do it. I can't even theorize about it. When they come in your house, there's like 4 or 5 guys there with FBI on their back, and it's like, I do not want to think about this. I'm not ashamed to say that I have dreams sometimes about dealing with that. And you wake up and the first thing you do is, oh, thank God I'm not in jail anymore. Because in the dream, it's like, what if they do? What if they do? What if they do? So it's like I actually have mental trauma regarding that. I like to go with the theories that they got when they don't involve me. Some member of the hotel, someone that didn't like furries. That's it. I go with that. Someone that hated the furries at the convention, so they decided to do something to spoil their convention. Because I noticed it happened on like the biggest Saturday night. So while everyone's going around doing stuff, somebody sneaks into the stairwell and does that, and then runs away into the dark, and you don't see him again. That's the theory that I have. If I could be bothered to unblock the mental crap.
It's as if we're watching a skirmish in a larger war raging within him. Like there are aspects of Suchkowski that maybe can't be reconciled. Not by us, and not even by himself. I can't help but look at Sinister, the 3-headed Chimera suit on the other side of the room. There's a part of him that's clearly proud. Proud of his fursuits, including the Confederate one. And also proud of being a furry.
Were there things that you don't regret? What have been the
Making suits, going to cons, making friends. You know, having adventures, things I never would have been able to do outside of the Phantom. You know, normal people don't do these kinds of things. They pay bills and they're miserable. Still, nothing beats going around and having, you know, kids come up and greet you and pull on your tail, you know, in a playful way, and you know, what you've done made somebody else's day happier.
This is the guy who's the loyal friend Lucid described in the last episode. The Sichkowski who wrote that blog post about just wanting to be held. Who, I think, genuinely regrets the drama he's caused over the years.
I wish I could go back in time with all these and start over. That would have been great. I wouldn't have made the Baron. I wouldn't have made Arkansas his name. I probably wouldn't have got involved in politics at all.
Then there's another Sichkowski. The Sichkowski who uses his prodigious artistic talent to make suits that provoke, that outrage people. Confederate flag suit, Trump sign, German officer. Like, he just can't help himself. Then there seems to be yet another, much darker Sichkowski. The one who was convicted for animal cruelty. The one who, several people have alleged, might go to great lengths to hurt those who cross him. The one we've heard such disturbing stories about from multiple sources.
I hate to bring this up, but there are some earlier convictions that you have for
Yeah, they can all be read about online.
Do you deny doing them?
I was not well behaved when I was younger. Those are the things I want to keep buried. All the information about that is all anyone's ever going to get. It's in the past. 20 years ago, I mean, how far back are we going to go? My mom used to give me peanut butter and pickle sandwiches to take to school in kindergarten. Why'd they bring that up too? Nah, it's in the past.
In this Sichkowski is the bitterness, the vengeance stuff. The person so many of our sources said they're scared of. We've heard from multiple people about how when he drinks, he switches, loses control. Somewhere, I think the real Robert Sichkowski is trapped between all of them, unable to escape. Perhaps, when he made the three-headed Chimera fursuit, there was some kind of subconscious awareness of this.
What would you, if you could speak to the person that did this, what would your sort of message be now, 10 years later?
Well, you know what you did, and you know what's going to happen if you say anything. Can't change the past, I don't know. I mean, what do you say to someone like that? Other than why? Isn't that the biggest question, why?
The four of us, me, producer Max, and videographers Nick and Ryan, are all taking turns now, trying to find any angle that might break the stalemate. It's like good cop, other bad cop, medium cop. Far from the aggression we'd feared, Sichkowski is shying away from the questions. We want to press a bit harder.
What do you think a fair punishment would be?
I can't even really formulate an answer right now. And I'm holding on pretty good. It frazzles my mind. I feel like a little bit lightheaded just thinking about it. I mean, say if it was, how long should somebody do in jail for something like that? Said nobody died, nobody was sexually molested, and no real property damage. I mean, they just cleaned up, there was a smell. It'll never be done in the minds of the people that were hurt. I mean, if it's going to be brought up 10 years later, obviously there's still something bothering those people. It'll never be over for those people where it's coughing up blood, going to the hospital, they're convinced. They go there all year long, they wait for this con, and this is what happens. That damage will never be undone. And I got to live with the mental trauma. Every time somebody brings it up, I start to, oh no, not that night again. You start to get your stomach tightens up, it's like, ugh.
We've thrown the question at him a whole bunch of different ways by this point. Sichkowski is drifting, retreating even further into himself. The atmosphere's gotten quiet and tense. Max tries to soften things a bit.
Maybe it'll get me thinking about what happened in the past, and maybe I can deal with it.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't think it was going to. My mind literally feels like I'm high right now.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to affect me like that.
Well, no, I mean, look, it's a lot to go over. It was a lot to go over clearly in the moment. It's a lot to process. I haven't had
closure either.
Yeah. Well, sorry to dredge it up, but we hope.
Well, it's a very unique situation in the family. I don't even have anyone to talk to really about it because who's been through it like me?
Right. Yeah.
By this point, we've been there almost 3 hours. We're running out of angles, but it feels like we're so close to getting somewhere.
So statute of limitations is up. It's 10 years ago. How do you now think and process MFF 2014?
It still happened. No one's ever going to change that. It's just a mystery that, well, they better not wait too long, whoever did it, to come clean. There's nothing worse than a mystery that never gets solved.
We've said almost everything we can. Whatever he's going to tell us, we've hit that apex. The crew start packing up. Sichkowski seems like he's reeling, still sitting in that chair framed by fur with a 1,000-yard stare. But Nick asks a late question. Later on, after we've packed up and left, we agree it's what he says here that sticks with us. Because it doesn't feel like his answer is addressed to us at all.
This is a question we're asking lots of people. Just creating a space, if it were the time for someone to come forward.
Well, if they value any sort of reputation they have, they should keep their mouth shut. I mean, it would be the smart thing to do. I don't know.
Would it be sort of a gift to people to know?
It would be a gift because then it could have closure on it.
Yeah, maybe.
And then that person would get the shit suit out of them, and their life would be over. You would have people find out who their real name is, where they work, and telling everyone blah, 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 and get them fired and canceled. And beyond that, driving to suicide. It may not be the right thing, but it would be the smart thing to do to keep their mouth shut.
If we were hoping for a dramatic admission of guilt, it didn't happen here. But as we drove away, we couldn't shake the feeling that Sichkowski wanted to tell us something more, but stopped short. Did his anxiety stem from the continued suspicions that hang over him? Or was there something else going on? He was never charged, so why would he still be so flustered all these years later? It was baffling and, to be honest, a little frustrating. We'll be back after this. We're back.
Wow. Huh. Damn. That is so strange.
We call Patch and play him that clip from the end of the interview. His reaction is the same as ours.
That isn't somebody who wants justice. That's somebody who is, maybe I'm stretching on what I think from everything I know, but that's a guy who's racked with guilt.
I came out of that interview feeling pity.
Yeah, that's fair on the human level. I mean, like logically, you want to be like, hey, we got the guy, we're solving the crime. That's a scared, frightened little person.
In the days and weeks since meeting, Sichkowski's continued to message with us. He's been friendly and even, at times, keen to help. It was him, in fact, who shared the tape of his police interview with us, the one that was destroyed by Rosemont PD in April 2019.
There's nothing more irritating than an untold story that you are blocked from telling. So, God, it just sits there in your brain, just itching, and that's maybe also a feeling in the mind of someone who's gotten away with something and has guilt about it. So it's sort of there's a duality there, the investigator and the investigated.
At the core of this case is a serious crime, and we've been dredging up a lot of personal backstories to try and understand what happened. I know what I think happened that night, but I'm not a prosecutor. I'm not the law. I don't have fingerprints or DNA evidence or CCTV. At the start of this series, we said this could have been an investigative screw-up of epic proportions. So, you know what? Let's look at the law. Let's look at what they did and what they didn't do.
I was quite surprised because, that's the world that I was in. And to have a case that you described to me and I've never heard it, frankly, I was suspicious that you even knew what you were talking about, because I was like, there's no way that this would happen.
Neither the FBI or the Rosemont Police Department are playing ball with us at all. Other than the docs, we're given no access to anyone we can ask any questions about the investigation. No interviews were granted. We need to speak to someone who really knows how this works at the highest possible level. So we get in touch with this guy, Chris Combs. He's retired now, but he was head of the FBI Weapons of Mass Destruction unit.
I mean, I think it's second to anthrax. This is a big deal. That's why I'm so shocked. You have 19 people who are that sick, they're coughing up blood. That's why I don't understand, because we're missing something here. That's a really big deal. So something doesn't make sense to me.
We send a formal list of questions to the FBI and Rosemont Police. We ask if the case is still actively being pursued. No comment.
But when you got people throwing up blood and you got that many people in a hospital, that's a big deal. I mean, that's a real use of a WMD. That's a big deal, and the FBI should be coming hard.
But we've followed the footsteps of this investigation. We tracked down and went to meet the last suspect they interacted with. That was Caleb Kincaid, the champion farter and teller of tall tales from episode 4. When they interviewed him, they told him that they'd been tipped off. But here's a weird thing. They also said that tip-off had come in 2010, even though it was, quote, very specific to the incident that occurred. That was 4 years before the event. We thought it must be a typo, but no, it was brought up to him specifically and aggressively, as if he'd been planning the attack for 4 years. The document notes, and again I'm quoting directly here, that Caleb's response at this point in the interview was, "What the fuck?" Which is honestly pretty reasonable. Combs is baffled too.
Something doesn't make sense. You're missing something. I don't know what we're missing, but we're missing something.
Writing these last episodes, I'm rechecking the hundreds of pages of documents. And I noticed something that slipped us by. It's about Caleb. It's buried at the bottom of one of the documents. The paragraph is so peppered with redactions as to be almost unreadable. And the phrasing is misleading. But the upshot is, turns out officers did check and verify Caleb's alibi with his family, which placed him in Oklahoma on the night of the attack. But the agents who interviewed Caleb years later seem to have either missed it, or, if we're being extremely generous, maybe just discounted it. We missed it for so long because it's from the very beginning of the investigation, 5 years before they turn up at his house in 2019. So they stood up his alibi, then continued to investigate him for 5 more years, based on a tip-off from before the crime even took place. We asked the FBI in our official questions how they could have investigated Kincaid based on a tip-off from before the event, and why they continued to investigate him after task force officers confirmed his alibi. No comment. Then there's the screw-up with the testing, and the fact that the scene was cleared within hours and people were allowed back into the hotel. Combs, hearing this, sounds appalled.
But, I mean, you'd have to tell me, if they think they've got somebody who perpetrated a WMD and you got that many people sick in a hospital, I don't understand how you could be tied up with that in 3 hours. I just don't.
But that's exactly what happened. Another document mentions that someone listed as a suspect, the name is redacted, purchased muriatic acid, a possible reacting agent for a chlorine device, at a shop called Norbert Pools the month before the attack. We called the number listed for Norbert Pools. It has since shut down. We tried and failed to contact the former owner or any former employees. Sounds important though, right? But it is never referred to again by the FBI or police in their investigation, and nobody asked either Kincaid or Szychkowski about it, at least according to the documents we've seen. We asked the FBI about this purchase in our official questions. No comment.
What I think is very plausible is this event occurs. The FBI is not called that night. So the locals handle it the best they know how. The FBI is not brought in until the next day or the next 3 days, right? Whatever. Well, at that point, the evidence is gone. The people are gone. And now you got a problem, right? Like now the FBI maybe not want to jump in so fast because you're so far behind the 8 ball.
We scour the documents trying to find out exactly when the FBI were called to the scene. But even in the Bureau's own reports, no time is stated. It just says they received information about the attack on December 7th, which could either mean in the early hours just after the attack happened, or later, during the day on Sunday. To Combs, the only explanation is the latter.
I mean, that kind of sounds like that to me. And whether they didn't call the FBI because they didn't want to, because there was friction there, which is possible, or they didn't feel they needed to, or they didn't know to do that. But to me, it does not sound like the FBI was there that night.
We ask, in our official questions, exactly when the FBI were notified. No comment.
Now, later on, if this was in the news, if I woke up the next day and I read this in the newspaper, I'd be like, oh my God. And I'd call the chief of police and say, what happened last night? Why didn't you call us?
Then there's Szychkowski. We ask in our official questions why authorities never followed up with him after the 2017 interview, when he declined a polygraph test and gave an alibi they knew was false. No comment. The truth is, if this case is really dead, it died by 1,000 cuts. Small, mundane, systematic errors that weighed it down at every turn. Across the agencies and police departments involved in this case, a whole bunch of people got dressed in the morning, tied their boots, and screwed this up. Maybe missed something here, forgot to check the documents there, filed something wrong. Maybe if it wasn't furries, this thing gets solved. Or maybe not. We don't know who exactly deserves blame. We don't know much about the internal politics of the investigation. There's the 2 principal investigators, the ones who we heard in the last episode interrogating Szychkowski in 2017. Sean Rose of Rosemont PD and FBI Special Agent Angelo DeFeo. However empty they seem ultimately to have come up, they at least seem to have taken what happened seriously. They treated the furry fandom as people. They wanted to find out what happened. Maybe it got under their skin as much as it did ours. Maybe they were pushing against internal resistance. Or maybe not. Maybe they're still plugging away somewhere. The FBI won't respond to our questions, so we just don't know. We will likely never know for sure what really happened, unless the perpetrator comes forward. But regardless of that, we're going to keep this open. If anyone listening to this has information on this case, get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
So, thoughts? Like, having started out this journey, you know, where are you feeling right now?
Well, we have a community that's been under attack, not just from this case, but so this is like a serial problem, a security threat. And there's also like bomb threats, swatting, that kind of thing. This is ongoing.
The first thing that drew me to this story wasn't just the question of how the investigation was so botched. It was that there's an element to it that's like a battle for the soul of the internet. You've got this very early community that's all based around, being kind to people and being creative and allowing people space to express that creativity. And then you have the darker side, the Nazi furs, the violence of the attack itself. And that seemed to me to kind of encapsulate the whole story of the digital world. At the time, it shocked me when we went to Midwest Fur Fest in 2023 that it was even still being held in the same place. To be on that dance floor and then to go upstairs and see the exact place where a gas bomb had been set off. The cognitive dissonance felt overwhelming.
This was not just 10 years ago. And it makes us look at the limits of the justice system. If they're going to be screwing up so badly on something that was so serious that actually happened, well, when we face the next threat, we have to be prepared. And, the fact is, when we have somebody who got away with this, whoever the perpetrator was, which I think I know who it is. I think we all have a good idea. It makes us look at how often people actually get away with a serious crime, even if we know it. And there's a need for community protection inside, not just relying on the police, not just waiting for the cavalry to come from outside. We have to be proactive and we have to be protective inside.
That's set against the desire we heard expressed over and over in the conversations we had with furries. The desire to reject even the concept of investigating the attack for fear of breaking the innocence of the community in some way.
I'm divided. On the one hand, people want to have joyful spaces where they don't have to deal with serious stuff. On the other hand, negligence.
For me, though, now that we're at the end of this journey, I feel differently than I did back then. Not in the way of closure, not exactly. But I think I can now see something larger about the whole story. Something more important than just satisfying my curiosity, my itch, my need to know. If the furry fandom is, as we've said before, a miniature of the wider world, a microcosm, then the ultimate takeaway of the whole story of the gas attack seems to me one of resilience. It has always been dangerous to be different. For furries, being misunderstood, laughed at, victimized, wasn't new the night of the gas attack.
I'm glad you also asked several times about, how I feel about Magnus or the topic of having pity for somebody who has, who shows guilt. That's asking the community or members of the community. That's asking furries to be furries. We like this lighthearted, innocent, joyful thing. And that also might apply to how we handle very serious, dark, deep stories.
The fandom endures because they're used to enduring. The way many other queer communities or minority groups or really any group of people who are in some way different from the mainstream have always had to endure. The Saturday night of the convention where we went in 2023, 9 years after the attack, that dance floor at the Hyatt Regency Hotel and Convention Center in Rosemont, Illinois, was still a colourful chaos of whirling, furry bodies. More, in fact, than ever before. And it will be again, and again. The people dancing in their beautiful, colourful fursuits. People who wear their masks not to hide, but in order to be, in a higher, truer sense, more openly themselves, with pride.
Rosemont police say an intentional chlorine gas leak has sent 19 people to the hospital.
You have to read this story. Act like animals, you get put down like one. Many still dressed in their furry costumes.
Set against the squalid cruelty of the attack and the hapless investigation that followed, that idea of joy, of abandon, the idea that's so core to the DNA of this fandom, it won out. And I think there's a certain amount of hope to be taken from that. I'm Nicky Wolf. This is Fur Loathing. Fur Loathing is a production of Brazen. You can follow the show on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts to stay up to date on new episodes. If you enjoyed the show and would like to show your support, consider buying merchandise at shop.brazen.fm. That's shop.brazen.fm. And don't forget to leave us a review, it really does help. Fur Loathing was produced by Goat Rodeo. The show was written and reported by me, Nicky Wolf, with Max Johnston, Ian Enright, Lucy Woods, and Arnav Binaikia. From Goat Rodeo, lead producer is Ian Enright. Reporting, production, and story editing from Max Johnston. Additional field reporting from Cara Schillen. Voice acting by Hannah Moorish, Sam Wolf, and Katie Sherrard. From Project Brazen, senior producer is Nicholas Brennan. Executive producers are Bradley Hope and Tom Wright. Managing producer is Lucy Woods. Associate producing by Arnav Binaikia. Mariangel Gonzalez is our project manager, and Megan Dean is programming manager. Original score by the fabulous Breakmaster Cylinder. Additional music from Ian Enright, Max Johnston, and Blue Dot Sessions. Additional editorial and production assistance at Goat Rodeo from Cara Schillen, Rebecca Seidel, Isabel Kirby McGowan, Jay Venables, and Megan Nadolski. Additional editorial and production at Project Brazen from Andrea Klarich, Clara Preve, Maddie Forster, and Charlie Barlow. Ryan Ho is series creative director. Cover art by Julian Pradier. Series cinematography by Emmett Brennan and Ryan DeFranco. Special thanks to David Waters. This show couldn't have happened without the involvement and support of the furry fandom. Special thanks to those who shared their stories with us, including Pacho Fur, Atmos Deer, Toa Cat, Ziegler Jaguar, Uncle Kage, and Shy Matzi.